it out. You don't need the umpire for that, boy, and that's a cracker of a swing ball.
Welcome back to the CricketCast. I'm your host, Flex. We've got a big series to talk about, of course, the ongoing India versus England series, the Tour of England, and the third test concluding a few days ago. So India coming back into this series with a massive 203-run win in the third test at Trent Bridge in Nottingham. So India batting first, putting up a very healthy total of 329, and this is what really kept them in the game. And bowling England out for 161 in their first innings. And then, of course, India continuing to pile on the runs, 352 for 7 declared, setting England a massive target of 521 runs to win the test match. England, of course, all out for 317. A better batting display in the second innings for England, but of course, it's over 200 runs too short. It was just too big of a challenge for India in that for England in that final innings to win this match. So India getting their first win of the Test series. It is now a 2-1 series lead for England heading into the fourth Test match in Southampton. So the series has now come alive, and I think it's very safe to say that India are now proving that their win against South Africa in Johannesburg, I think it was earlier this year, was not a one-off. They are now a very competent, competitive unit, even in overseas conditions. This was a sporting pitch. There was movement through the air, movement off the pitch here in Trent Bridge, and India still prevailed. This has been, one of their undoings in recent memory, where they've really struggled in overseas conditions, but they've really come back. And it's really the depth of their fast bowling, which is what is making India be very competitive in these overseas matches. They now have a core of about 5 or 6 very good fast bowlers. They can play a horses for courses type of thing. They've got a balanced attack. They've got Nishant Sharma, who can generate bounce, who can move the ball off the seam. They've got Jasprit Bumrah and Umesh Yadav, who can provide pace. They also have Mohammad Shami, who can move the ball, do a little bit of something. And then they've got Hardik Pandya, who's a seam bowling all-rounder. And we haven't seen him yet in this series. He's been injured, but Bhuvneshwar Kumar is the preeminent swing bowler in this Indian side, and he hasn't played in this series. So India haven't really even had a full-strength fast bowling core, and yet they've been competitive in this series. So that's a very good thing for them. An additional thing to mention is that the discipline that the batsmen showed in the first test, although they came up slightly short, was another thing that India had going in their favor in this match. The batsmen were a lot more disciplined. Ravi Shastri was talking about it and about how they didn't really do anything special to prepare for this test. After the domination that they suffered in the second test, losing by an innings, they just took a few days off. They just, took a mental break, took a physical break. They weren't training. They weren't battling hard in the nets. They just came out with a fresh slate, a blank slate, came into this test, and the results showed. They put in 2 good batting performances, and it wasn't just all about Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli did very well, scored 200 runs across the 2 innings, a century in the second innings, which was vital for India to get a lead, get an unassailable lead in the match. But it was really that disciplined batting. They waited for the bad balls, put them away, and then respected the good deliveries. And this is something that they weren't able to do in the second test match, where they lost by an innings. They were bowled out. I think they were dismissed twice for under 150. So that was something where, they just kept playing at the ball with hard hands, edging a lot of them behind, and there were a lot of chances that they gave up too. So their batting could have been even worse in the second test than it was. But they rectified all those mistakes. And for England, on the other hand, they've got a lot of questions to ask. They're bowling, for the most part, no problems, no real criticism for their bowling. They have a bowling attack that's going to do what they do. It's not the strongest bowling attack in the world, but in their conditions, they will be a handful. But the issue for England is their top-order batting. They've gotten next to no runs from Alistair Cook. I mean, he's a great player, tremendous record, but haven't had a contribution from him in a long time. It seems like they've always got a young, new opener in. Right now it's Keaton Jennings. Joe Root has been probably the biggest talk of the town. He's become this guy that gets 50s every now and then, but can't convert into a bigger score. And you can't win test matches with your lead batsman getting 50s. Your lead batsman has got to get big daddy hundreds, and Joe Root hasn't done that in quite a while. Really, England, they're batting. They're just getting they're getting some production from Johnny Bairstow, and then one of their many bowling all-rounders is chipping in with some big runs. And you can't do that. You can't rely on your bowlers to score the runs and then also defend them. That's something that has to be rectified, and has to be rectified by the top order. So it's got to be Alistair Cook. It's got to be Joe Root. It's got to be Keaton Jennings, who really take the responsibility to score these runs. I mean, they've got Ollie Pope in there, but he's a young kid. He's only 20 years old. It's very difficult to expect him to take up the mantle and score and take up the responsibility and score the bulk of the runs. So it's got to be on Cook. It's got to be on Jennings. It's got to be on Root. And then you get the contributions from Stokes and Bairstow and Butler. And then, of course, you have excellent batting. England probably has the best batting lower order. Not probably, they definitely have the best batting lower order in cricket at the moment. But it's too much to expect them to bail the team out with the bat every single innings. And that's been what's happening because England's top order has been so frail. So this is a series that has suddenly kind of sprung to life. There was, England was threatening to run away with this series after the second test, especially after they won by an innings. But what a momentum shift. I mean, they had all the momentum, and then within 5 days, India had taken all the momentum for themselves. So this is going to be a great series coming up. There's 2 more tests to go. I still think it's going to be an uphill battle for India to win this test series, but it's going to be very close. I think it might be 3-2 to England, but we'll see how it goes. Definitely the next test in Southampton is going to be a very critical match. This is going to be, in many ways, I think the most important match of this series, because if India goes on to lose, then they've already lost the series. But if India wins, then it's going to square the series up, and then it's going to be very difficult because England will probably start to panic as they will have then lost 2 test matches at home in a row. Now, England, the other issue is that they've got to figure out ways of winning test matches, winning test series convincingly at home. They've lost so many test matches at home, especially to sides that they probably shouldn't be losing to. You wouldn't expect them to lose to West Indies or Pakistan at home, but that's what's happened with England. So they've got quite a few issues to work out for themselves. So it's going to be a great test match coming up, so stay tuned for that for sure. And we've got Ireland versus Afghanistan coming up in the next segment. So now we have the Afghanistan tour of Ireland. It's a limited overs tour only. Both of these teams, of course, getting test status recently. They got it last year, both playing their first tests this, in the Northern Hemisphere summer. But no test scheduled for this series, interestingly enough. But they did start off with a T20 series, a 3-match series, which Afghanistan swept 2-0. The third and final match of the series was washed out due to rain. But the first game was fairly close. Afghanistan going on to win by 16 runs. The second T20I, it was all Afghanistan. It was a massive win for them. They posted 160 in their 20 overs and then bowled Ireland out for 79, winning by 81 runs. Really just highlighting the gap in class between the two teams in that format. Afghanistan, of course, they're slow bowlers, just a handful, too much for the Irish batsmen to handle. Mujib Zadran, fantastic opening bowler. He keeps it very tight. I think he had an economy rate of just above 4 for the T20 series, which is phenomenal for the shortest format. And of course, Rashid Khan picking up wickets, throughout the middle phases of the innings. So Afghanistan doing very well, winning this series 2-0. They have a young batsman who has only played 3 T20 matches. Hazratul Azazai, who hit 13 sixes, faced 87 balls in the series and hit 13 sixes. So that's a 6 every less than 7th delivery. So looks like he's a very big hitter, powerful hitter, and he really took Afghanistan home in this series. He scored, I think he had 2 big 50s, very quickly scored. Had a strike rate of 179 over the course of the series, had a batting average of over 75. So 2 really, really big innings from him, and that's what really made the difference between Afghanistan and Ireland. As usual, the Afghans having batting collapses towards the end of the innings. You could see that they had identical scores in both matches, 160 for 7 in the first match and 160 for 8 in the second. So they really lost a lot of wickets towards the tail end of innings, which is not unusual in a T20 match. But for Afghanistan, that's one thing that they've really got to worry about, especially with the ODI series coming up against Ireland, which begins August 27th, which begins tomorrow. A 3-match series. All the matches will be in Belfast. This is, I think, going to be more of an even contest between Ireland and Afghanistan. The Afghans are definitely going to be favorites, but Ireland will remember that they did win a ODI series 2-1 against Afghanistan, most recent time that they had a bilateral, which was hosted in India. So Ireland will feel confident that in their own conditions, they will be able to subdue Afghanistan yet again. Again, the main threats for Ireland are going to be Afghanistan's spin bowling. Mujib Zadran, Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi, excellent spin bowlers. They really keep things tight, and they're wicket-taking options as well. So it's going to be difficult for Ireland, but they were able to handle these bowlers in India. So they should have, one would expect that they would have an easier time handling them on their own pitches, on their own conditions, where the ball is expected to not spin too much. So it's going to be interesting to see how the weather is going to play out. All 3 matches are going to be in Belfast. You know, matches are often rain-reduced or rain-affected in Ireland, in the British Isles. So it's going to be interesting to see if we can get full 50-over contest in. And I think that this is probably going to be a very, very close series. It's going to be 2-1 to whichever side makes the fewest mistakes over the course of the 3-game series. So I think it's going to be a 2-1 series margin in this one. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that Ireland is going to win the series 2-1. That's just my prediction. But, of course, I could be wrong. But it's going to be a very interesting series, and I hope that there are streaming links available for it. So definitely stay tuned for that, and I will see you for the next episode of the Cricket Cast.